He nodded thoughtfully, staring down at the long fingers of his freshly blued hand as if he just noticed something odd about it. I recognized the professional pause of a man long accustomed to the sound of his own brain working. I could almost hear it, the high-speed memory scan of a very personal computer that would sooner or later come up with whatever fact, link, or long-forgotten detail he was waiting for. He closed his eyes again. "The big island is different from the others," he said. "Especially that mess in Honolulu. It looks like going back in time. Nobody hassles you, plenty of space to move around. It's probably the only place in the island where the people have any sense of the old Hawaiian culture." "Wonderful," I said. "We'll be there next week. All we have to do in Honolulu is cover the marathon, then hide out in Kona for a while, and lash the story together." "Right," he said. "Call me when you get settled in. I could take you around to some of the places where the old magic still lives." He smiled thoughtfully. "Yeah, we could go down to South Point, the city of refuge, spend some time with the ghost of Captain Cook. Hell, we might even do some diving, if the weather's right." I put my book down and we talked for a while. It was the first time anybody had ever told me anything interesting about Hawaii. The native legends, old wars, missionaries, the strange and terrible fate of Captain Cook. "This city of refuge looks interesting," I said. "You don't find many cultures with a sense of sanctuary that powerful." "Yeah," he said, "but you had to get there first, and you had to be faster than whoever was chasing you." He chuckled. "It was a sportive proposition for sure. But once you got there," I said, "you were absolutely protected, right?" "Absolutely," he said. "Not even the gods could touch you, once you go through the gate." "Wonderful," I said. "I might need a place like that." "Yeah," he said. "Me too. That's why I live where I do." "Where?" He smiled. "On a clear day I can look down the mountain and see the city of refuge from my front porch. It gives me a great sense of comfort." I had a feeling that he was telling the truth. Whatever kind of life Ackerman lived seemed to require a built-in fallback position. You don't find many investment counselors from Hawaii or anywhere else who can drop anything so important down the tube in a 747 bathroom that they will get their arms dyed blue to retrieve it. We were alone in the dome, 38,000 feet above the Pacific, with at least another 2 hours to go. We would be in Honolulu sometime around sunrise. Over the top of my book I could see him half asleep, but constantly scratching his arm. His eyes were closed, but the fingers of his clean hand were wide awake on his spastic movements were beginning to get on my nerves. The stewardess came up to have a look at us, but the sight of Ackerman's arm made her face quiver and she quickly went back down the stairs. We had a small icebox full of Miller High Life, and a whole selection of mini bottles in the liquor drawer, so there was no need to do anything but keep a wary eye on Ackerman. Finally he seemed to be asleep. The dome was dark, except for the small glow of table lights, and I settled back on the couch to ponder my research material. The main impression I recall from what I read in those hours is that Hawaiian Island has no written history at all beyond the past 200 years, when the first missionaries and sea captains began trying to interpret a chronology of some kind by listening to tales told by natives. Nobody even knew where the island themselves had come from, much less the people. On the grey afternoon of January 16th, 1779, Captain James Cook, the greatest explorer of his age, sailed the 2 ships of his 3rd Pacific expedition into the tiny rock-walled shelter of Kealakekua Bay on the west coast of a previously uncharted mid-Pacific island called Owaihi by the natives, and found his place in history as the first white man to officially discover the Hawaiian Islands. The bay inside the channel was shrouded in fog and surrounded by a wall of sheer cliffs 500 feet high. It looked more like a tomb than a harbor, and despite the desperate condition of the ships and his crew after 10 days in the killer monsoon, Cook was reluctant to enter. But he had no choice. His crew was threatening mutiny, scurvy was rampant, his ships were coming apart beneath his feet, and the morale of his whole expedition had collapsed after 6 months at sea in the Arctic. And now, after sailing straight south from Alaska in a condition of genuine hysteria, the mere sight of land made him crazy. So Cook took them in. Kealakekua Bay wasn't the kind of safe anchorage he wanted, but it was the only one available in what turned out to be his last storm. I was still reading when the stewardess appeared to announce that we'd be landing in 30 minutes. "You have to take your regular seats down below," she said, not looking at Ackerman, who still seemed asleep. I began packing up my gear. The sky outside the porthole was getting light. As I dragged my satchel up the aisle, Ackerman woke up and lit a cigarette. "Tell him I couldn't make it," he said. "I think I can handle the landing from up here," he grinned, and fastened the seatbelt that poked out from the depths of the couch. "They won't miss me down there," he said. "I'll see you in Kona." "Okay," I said. "You're not staying in Honolulu?" He shook his head. "Just long enough to get to the bank," he said, glancing down at his watch. "It opens at 9. I should be home for lunch." I stopped and shook hands with him. "Good luck," I said. "Take care of that arm." He smiled and reached into the pocket of his bush jacket. "Thanks, Doc," he said. "Here's a little something for you. It might be a long day." He dropped a small glass bottle in my hand and pointed to the crew bathroom. "Better do it up here," he said. "You don't want to be landing with anything illegal." I agreed and went quickly into the tin closet. When I came out, I tossed the bottle back to him. "Wonderful," I said. "I feel better already." "That's good," he replied. "I have the feeling you're going to need all the help you can get over there."